Shah.
Thank you.
Nice.
Sir, so nice of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sir, yeah, we are live now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I start?
Sure, sir, you can start.
Good evening to all our viewers to this 10th technical seminar of INA in the year 2021. Each and every technical seminar of our institution brings newer vision and knowledge. In today's seminar also, we will discuss one such important technical subject. It is a matter of joy that today's seminar is being organized with the efforts of our Kolkata and Kharagpur chapter. Dear friends, I have further joy to announce that we are privileged as today's seminar will be chaired by an eminent professor from the Department of Ocean Engineering and Naval Architecture, IIT Kharagpur. He is no other than our friend and teacher, Dr. Om Prakash Shah. We all know Dr. Shah, but still, I will take a few moments to formally introduce him to you. Firstly, I must confess that he is also my mentor and my guide on various technical subjects. Whenever I have some doubt on some naval architecture matter, I consult him from Kolkata over phone, and he gives me the right advice. Dr. Shah teaches wide variety of subjects, and his area of special interest includes ship design and production, CAD/CAM, and high-performance vehicles. He is involved in a number of sponsored research and industrial consultancy matters. Dr. Shah is entrusted by the Sagarmala cell of the Ministry of Shipping and IIT Kharagpur to head the Center for Inland and Coastal Maritime Technology at IIT Kharagpur, where the country's first shallow as well as deep water seakeeping and maneuvering basin for ship model testing is being set up. Much more can be said about Professor Shah, but without spending much time, I request Dr. Shah to take the chair and conduct the seminar. Dr. Shah, please.
Thank you, Mr. Palit, for those kind words. I am indeed honored that INA has given me this opportunity to conduct this session on autonomous ships. First of all, I would like to welcome all the participants, the INA members, the chief guest and the speaker. Now, it is my privilege and honor to first introduce the chief guest of this particular session, who is none other than Mr. M.V. Ramamurthy. Now, I think Ramamurthy sir doesn't need any introduction to the world of marine engineers and naval architect, but still I am indeed honored to introduce him because he is a person with very vast experience and has made a huge contribution to the maritime sector. Mr. Ramamurthy graduated in mechanical engineering in 1967 and initially was with Shipping Corporation as chief engineer and then technical superintendent, followed by a stint at L&T Shipping Division, where he looked into new buildings and operations. Only recently, he retired as the President Shipping and Head of Center of Excellence for Maritime and Ports with Reliance Industries Limited, after serving them for more than 30 years. He has more than 54 years of experience in ship operations, development of new constructions, bulk and liquid handling, oil and chemical, and liquefied gas. He has been the fellow and past president of Institute of Marine Engineers. It has been my privilege to sit with him as in the IRS Technical Committee, for which he has been the chairman for nearly 2 decades. It is a privilege and an honor, I tell you, because I think I have learned a lot on the practical sides of shipping and shipbuilding just by attending those seminars which he has chaired. And I thank you, sir, for that. He has also been the Technical and Legal Insurance Committee, or chairman of the Technical and Legal Insurance Committee at INSA, and was the director of IRS for more than a decade. He has been the Indian delegate to MEPC at the meetings of IMO, been a faculty visiting faculty at Marine Training Institutes, and his notable achievements have been the salvaging grounded ships for his own company for the national cause. His immense contribution to the Indian maritime industry has won him many awards, but he has been sort of a doyen and a father figure to the maritime industry. So I'm indeed thankful and also to INA for having such a distinguished chief guest for this particular session. So Mr. Ramamurthy sir, thank you for taking this time off, and we would look forward to your comments and advice on this particular topic. The speaker today is Dr. L.R. Chari, and Dr. Chari also needs no introduction. Dr. Chari has been a marine electrical engineer by profession. He had his bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degree from VJTI, University of Bombay. His doctorate was on the subject of control engineering and automation, where he had worked on a system for nuclear reactor power control for nuclear powered ships and adaptive autopilot and guidance system for ships. So perhaps the most appropriate person to talk about on autonomous ships. He started his career with Tata Electric before joining Shipping Corporation in 1974, and he has held senior positions right up to executive director and group general manager. He has done a number of consultancy assignments on behalf of Shipping Corporation, ONGC, Department of Ocean Development, or now Department of Earth Science, and Geological Survey of India. He has a number of accomplishments, and he has authored 2 books and has numerous research publications. He is a recipient of a number of awards and honors from institutions like IEEE and also from the Institution of Marine Engineers for his work on harnessing renewable energy. At present, Dr. Chari is an independent maritime consultant and a member of board and a PhD supervisor for IMU, Chennai, Indian Maritime University, Chennai. The talk today is going to be on autonomous ships, a talk which we are all looking eagerly forward to. And I am, for one, looking forward to it because there are a lot of things coming now in the technical meeting and technical jargon. And we would like to clarify from you, sir, what is an autonomous ship, what is an unmanned ship, what are the distinctions, and I'm sure these questions will be answered in your presentation. So with these brief words, I would now request Dr. Chari to share his presentation, which will be approximately 45 minutes long, but as I said, we'll go along and adjust the timing accordingly. So thank you once again, and I request Dr. Chari to make his presentation.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
I think you can share the presentation in the
Yeah,
similar
yeah.
manner.
No, I'll just make some introductory remarks. I have given this talk at a number of forums, mainly attended by marine engineers or master mariners, nautical people. But this is for the first time I'll be presenting this to naval architects. Thank you for this opportunity to the Institute of Naval Architects for this. I am told the participants in this seminar will be from all over the world, located in various time zones. So I would adopt the Amitabh Bachchan style of greeting. Namaskar, Adab, Sat Sri Akal. इस वेबिनार में आपका स्वागत है. And I stop with this and then I become myself. This is a festival season in India. I would like to convey my greetings and good wishes to all of you. As I said, I'm in a kind of a fix now. When I talk to the marine engineers, I talk vaguely about some automation on the deck side. And I talk to the master mariners, I talk vaguely on some automation on the engine side. But now I'm going to talk to the naval architects who know the deck side, the engine side, the port side, the starboard side, the inside, the outside of the ship. So I'm in a dilemma how to start the talk. So I will start my presentation with a brief anecdote on Sailor John, John the Sailor. I'm sure all of you must be knowing who this is, but you'll soon come to know who it is. John, or little John, was a very intelligent child. By the age of 3, he could read and write very well. So the parents admitted him in the school and he did very, very well. By the age of 6, he could write short poems. But unfortunately, when he was 6 years old, tragedy struck his family. His mother gave birth to his child, a younger sister for John, and passed away. And under that shock, within 2 years, his father also passed away. So here were two children left in the care of their aunt, who was not so very well off, and probably this was an additional burden on her. So she tried to help them as much she could, but she was not pleased with John for one reason, and that reason is that he was a bookworm. His father had left a huge library, and by the age of 13, he had read books by Shakespeare, Alexander Dumas, R.L. Stevenson, poets like Shelley, Keats, and so on and so forth. But then the aunt said that we require some money to run the family. So I must find you a job and send you off. But nobody would give a job for a 13-year-old. So she said, best thing, I would send him to a ship, because those days there was no age limit, lower age limit. So he was put on a ship and he gladly agreed to go because he knew he will not be disturbed by his aunt when he is reading the books. So he started his career as a sailor, sailed for some time, and thereafter, when one of the ships on which he was working reached New York, he simply abandoned the ship because he wanted to pursue education, reading, literature. So he was doing odd jobs in New York for some time, and thereafter he came back to England and became a poet, later a poet laureate. He is no other than John Masefield. He had written a number of poems called the Saltwater Ballad. And one of the poems, some of you may be familiar, is Sea Fever. The opening lines of this poem is, I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and sky. Lonely seas because there were not so many ships in the 18th century and beginning 19th century. So he said, I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely seas and sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by. Now, if this John Masefield were to reincarnate in this day and age of autonomous ships, how will he word this opening lines of his poem? More about it after my presentation. Now I go to the presentation. I request Ahmed to help me here.
Yeah, sure, sir. Great. Thanks. Yeah. So you can use the share screen button on your screen
Yes.
to select the desktop.
Can you see it now?
Not yet, sir. Sir, one more thing, you may have to share through the Zoom as well, where we have the share screen button
Yes.
on the Zoom. So using that, you may have to come to the desktop window to share it.
Now can you see it?
Yeah, it is loading
Okay.
right now. Yeah, we
Okay.
can see it. Yeah, if you can make it full screen, yeah, using the slideshow, that will be great. Yeah, it is perfect. Yeah.
So I welcome all of you to this presentation on autonomous shipping. I use the word shipping because it's not the technical session. We'll try to see how this autonomous ships is going to affect the entire shipping industry. Normally you have a question answer session at the end of the presentation, right? But I would like to start differently. I would like to pose two questions to the audience and just give you 10 seconds to give me an answer. Whoever gives the right answer can have my share of Diwali sweets as well. Now the questions are, what was the first automation device that was installed on board a ship? In which year did this happen? Your time starts now.
So attendees can use the Q&A box for this as well. Yeah.
Yes. The time is over, so we move on. I give you the answer. In 1819, exactly 202 years ago, an enterprising ship owner and also an engineer decided that enough is with this vagaries of the wind. Let me put a steam engine on board the ship to propel it. So, along with the steam engine came the first automation device, that is the centrifugal governor. When the speed increased, this governor spheres flew out due to centrifugal force and controlled the inflow of the steam. So that is how the automation started 202 years ago, and it is not of recent 50, 60 years origin that all of us think of. Now let's take a look at what are the other automation devices came. In 1908, gyrocompass, followed by autopilot. Autopilot is the name given to the device on board aircrafts, but it was used to be called as self-steering gear on board ships. In 1925, it was boiler automation, echo sounder. In between 36 and 40, the warriors, it was the radars. In 65, between 65 and 70, many automation devices came on board, starting with main engine, generator, then the condition monitoring or trend monitoring system, and of course the classification societies like Lloyd's Registers and the DNV gave the names UMS, that is Unmanned Machinery Space, and E0 class of ships. Then between 70 and 75, satellite navigator, locator, 75 and 80, shipboard computers and LAN, 80 and 85, satellite communication and GPS, then 90, programmable logic controller. Then between 95 and 2001, we know all GMDSS equipment came on board. In 1995, the concept of Internet of Things was introduced, surprisingly not by an engineer, but by a businessman who wanted all his businesses and factories to be connected. Then between 19, but the development of autonomous ships started way back by the Chinese in 1970. It is definitely not of recent origin. And this went on up to 2018. And between 2018 and 2021, autonomous ships were launched. Let's look at the concept drivers. What are the concept drivers? Successes in the field of space science and technology, rapid development in information and communication technologies, successful application of artificial intelligence, machine learning in various fields, development of high reliability, high availability components like smart sensors, smart actuators, smart systems, advances in sensor fusion technology. This is one of the major contributors to autonomous ships, about which we will be seeing more. Then, of course, the Internet of Things. Now they've started calling it Marine Internet of Things. What is a smart sensor? This is a typical bookish definition, but let us go through the motions. A smart sensor is a device that takes inputs from physical environment, uses built-in computer resources to perform predefined functions upon detection of specific inputs, and then process the data for passing on them. Smart sensors enable more accurate and automated collection of environmental data with less erroneous noise amongst the accurately recorded information. These devices are used for monitoring and control mechanism in a wide variety of environment, including autonomous ships, smart grids, etc. Now, this is the block diagram of a smart sensor. The better way, here are all the sensors: temperature sensor, pressure sensor, acceleration, position, magnetic field, so on and so forth. This is the device or the electronic part of it, which makes it smart. I'll give you an example which will convey it better. You have on board a ship, board ships, generators. And in the generators, you have the windings, field, the armature and field windings. In these windings are placed temperature sensors called PT100 to monitor monitor and sound the alarm if the temperature of the generator goes up. So when the alarm comes, the electrical officer goes, takes a look at it, feels the temperature of the generator. If it is too hot, he shuts it, opens the generator, sees whether the alarm is the sensor is defective, replaces it with a new sensor and starts it off. But when you have an autonomous ship with nobody on board, who will do all these things? So in an autonomous ship, a smart sensor and this takes care of everything. There are two sensors implanted there. They are what is called a watchdog mode. One watches the other's performance, and if one of them goes wrong, it automatically switches to the other, and not there, and it doesn't stop there. What it does is it goes to the inventory system of the ship, checks out the inventory level. If there is no spare sensor there, then it sends out a message to the headquarters, gives the arrival notice, which is the next port of arrival, so that they can correct the spare sensor. This is the reason why it is called smart sensor because it does all the job that an electrical officer will do. We'll see, because it is about sensor and sensor fusion, we'll see what this sensor fusion technology is about. Sensor fusion technology is the technology used to combine data or information from a variety of sensors such that the resulting information has less uncertainty or more clarity than what would be possible when these sensors were used alone. It is better shown with an example. For an autonomous ship, you'll have these devices which enables it to detect the target ship's position, velocity, and orientation. This is the LiDAR, light detection and ranging device. This is the radar, which you're all familiar about. And this is a combined camera, which is a daylight camera as well as a night vision camera. All these inputs in a digital form goes into this. This is the Kalman filter. And it has got a model and also a measurement model. This makes use of this cycle. Initially, it gives a particular output, and then things get refined in a cyclic manner till the clearest version of the target is given. Mathematics will not leave you. So all of you sip your cup of tea to keep awake. Sensor fusion technology is used a Kalman filter, which is not a physical device, but it is a algorithm based on control systems. Now, this is called the state of the system. State here, in simple terms, are the position, velocity, and acceleration of the ship, a target ship. Okay. Then you have a measurement device which measures it, and these two are compared, and it generates what is called the Kalman gain. And this gain refines the data and gives out finally the exact clear version of the position, velocity, and acceleration of the position, velocity, and orientation of all the target ships. This is how it works. Let's not go too much into it. This is the state space equation, and this is the cycle which you saw, the Kalman cycle. I don't have an example for ship because all of them are playing it very close to the chest. Now here is an example. Here is a fighter plane facing 5 planes. So initially, the fighter plane will see the images in this form. There won't be clarity. But when it is passed through the Kalman filter, then you get a very clear picture of the position, velocity, and orientation of the targets. And then it is left to this ship, to this plane, to maneuver itself to avoid them or attack them. Now, you might ask, is Kalman filter the only filter? No, there is another filter called particle filter. Now, what is the difference? Which is better? Both are good. But in the case of Kalman filter, the inputs and the outputs follow what is called Gaussian distribution. There is no randomness in it, very little randomness. But then if you could have a situation where the inputs and outputs could have stochastic input, could be stochastic, in which case the particle filter does a better job. And those of you who are from Calcutta must be knowing this ISI, Indian Statistical Institute. It was headed by Dr. C.R. Rao, who after retirement went to the USA. He's still alive, he's 100 years old. He contributed a lot to this particle filter. You have the smart sensor, smart actuator. The smart actuator is an integrated actuator of all components such as motor, controller, sensor, and communication unit. And it works exactly the way the smart sensor works. This is the electronics about it. Then we come to the Internet of Things. Internet of Things is a network of physical devices, appliances, and other embedded with electronics, software, sensors, actuators, and network connectivity that enables these objects to connect and exchange data without requiring human to human or human to computer interaction. This is a bookish definition. Each object is uniquely identifiable, embedded through the embedded system, but is able to interoperate with the existing internet. This is better depicted with a diagram. This is the Internet of Things diagram. Any device, anything, anybody, anywhere, any services, any business, any path, any network, any place, anywhere, anything. So this is precisely what Internet of Things means. Total connectivity, each can communicate with the other through human or even directly. Now, this is the ship systems all of you are familiar with. This is the maneuvering system and the navigation system on the deck side, and all these are on the machinery side. The machinery management, power management, propulsion control. Propulsion control is with the navigation system, alarm management, cargo management, ballast management. These are all the engine side smart systems. These are the deck side smart systems. And when you put them together, it becomes the Internet of Things for ships. All these are network of following smart systems, machinery management, power management, etc., which you have seen. And each one of the above system is made up of network of smart subsystems. Now, this is how the diagram of a smart ship would look like. You have all the deck side smart systems. You have all the machinery side smart systems, and then you have all of them connected. Then it is connected to a backbone, and it is connected to a SATCOM or a VSAT. So that, but something is missing. Can you guess what it is? This is all about what is happening inside the autonomous ships. But what about the outside, just outside? Because that is more important to navigate the ship. That is missing here. And this is what it is. It is called the situational awareness system of an autonomous ship. We saw the Kalman filter, right? These are the sensors for the Kalman filter: high definition light camera, infrared camera, LiDAR, and radar. It filters out unwanted data and gives the position, velocity, and orientation of all the target ships. So when that is plugged here, it completes the Internet of Things on board autonomous ships. You have smart systems here, you have smart systems here, and then this is a smart system out telling the ship what is happening outside. It can be controlled from outside, from a remote center, or it can be self-controlled. There are two types of autonomous ships, basically. They are remote controlled unmanned ships. It can also be remote controlled manned ships. That is what KYC, which is also started this autonomous ships. You will see about it later. It can also be remote controlled manned ships. Then you have fully self-controlled unmanned ships. These are the two basic autonomous ships. Now, this diagram captures it all. This is a normal ship about which all of you know. This is the remote control ship. This is the one which senses what is happening outside the ship, gives it input to the shore-based controller who controls the ship, and through satellite, he controls the action of the ship itself. This is a totally automated ship without anybody intervening. It is a fully automated ship where the computers do all the control and navigate the ship. And this is a combination of both. This is how the autonomous ship looks like. There is no accommodation that is taken over by an additional hold here. This is your container ship, chock-a-block from fore to aft, full of. Now we'll take a deviation here and see how an artificial intelligence captain navigates in autonomous ships and how he avoids any possible accident. Now, the governing equation, this comes under what is called reinforcement learning. It is, you have artificial intelligence and you have machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. And under machine learning, you have three types of learning: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. So for autonomous steering of ships, the reinforcement learning is uh, 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 what do you call that? You call it algorithm is used. This algorithm is based on Bellman equation for a decision to alter the course of the own ship to avoid possible collision. This is the mathematical expression. What it says is the utility or the usefulness of taking a particular maneuvering action will depend on the immediate reward and all the future rewards with a discounted factor. And the above equation is a Bellman equation, which is solved iteratively, which we will now see how it is done. This is the utility or usefulness of the decision you take, which is based on.
I think the screen is frozen.
Yes, sir. If you can share your screen again once more. I think we lost the screen.
Now, can you see it?
No, not yet. If you, just checking if you're using the Zoom share button itself. Yeah,
Okay.
it is loading now.
So this is the utility function, present reward and all future rewards. And based on this, the decision to steer the ship to the starboard side or port side will be taken. But you know the rules of the road. The reward is when you encounter another ship coming in the opposite direction, you are supposed to steer to the starboard side. So there is a positive.
So we are losing track. We are losing your voice. Ijaz, can you come in because there is some problem?
Reward, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we can see you again, sir. Dr. Cherry.
I think we are going back to this diagram,
Yeah.
right? Can you see this now?
Yeah. So
Okay.
one thing, if we start, if maybe we can see the PPT, but I think there is a lesser bandwidth right now. So if possible, we can switch off the video for the time being during the presentation. I think that may help us as well.
Hello. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir. We can see it.
sorry to intervene, but I agree that bandwidth is because of problem, they can switch on the video, switch off the video.
We can't hear him now.
Let's just wait for a little while. I'm sure he's trying to, get back properly. Maybe he's having some issue.
Right.
Yeah. We can hear you and we can see the screen now, sir.
Now you will see the iteration operation in this, right? Now, the first iteration after the initialization, this one, a reward as 5 is given to steer to the starboard side, as you see it here, and a reward of -5 is given if the AI captain tries to steer it to the port side, because he will definitely go and hit the ship from the opposite direction. So you initialize with that and then go to the second iteration. So 5 points here, -5 points here. Okay, so the next iteration, it goes to 7 points here and -3 points here. The third iteration, again, it goes to 7.8 -2.2. The fourth iteration, it will again increase to 8.2, and so this is how the iteration takes place, and the decision will be taken when finally it settles down to the best value. And how do you do that? Now this is 8.25 and -1.75, and then the next iteration, the sixth iteration, it becomes 8.3 and minus. Now you set the last two iterations, if it differs by 0.05, that is the saturation point, and you can safely say that since 8.3 is greater than -1.7, you must steer the ship to the starboard side, and that is what it says in the foregoing six iterations. Now, how long will this take? Because of the speed of the computer, the entire process takes a couple of milliseconds to arrive at this decision. Okay, now what happens here on? We go back to this diagram. This is the situational awareness system, and where the Kalman filter is sitting, and you have the Bellman equation sitting here to receive the inputs from the Kalman filter, and the iteration is done here, and based on which is the most advantageous maneuver, the ship is turned in that direction. Let's see how it happens in this small simulated. You have the own ship, which is manned by a AI captain. You have a target ship because all the other target ships are not threatening. So the Kalman filter only concentrates on this and gives the input to the own ship. Okay. And this ship, depending upon what the Bellman equation says, which is more advantageous, gives an instruction to steer to the starboard side. Again, it is advantageous to steer to the starboard side because that is what the rule of the road also says. Now we will see in action. This is the first project they started of autonomous ships. It's going to take off in a couple of months. It is called Lara Berkeland. What you have to notice here is whatever you saw before, how the ship navigates to the starboard side when it faces a ship in the opposite direction. Okay, now here it is. They were formerly moving all the containers on land. Now they want to shift it to an autonomous ship. The containers are loaded automatically, autonomous loading. So more jobs lost. After the loading, a preferred route is charted. The ship undocks by itself and sails autonomously. After some time, it will face another ship in the opposite direction and maneuver itself to the starboard side to avoid collision. It is turned to the well, that's how the ship avoids collision. Now we will see an autonomous berthing, how the ship autonomously berths. This is by the McGregor people. They have devised the system. It is for the same ship. Have a look. So all made fast, declared without the berthing crew, and the ship will start loading or discharging. So many more jobs threatened. Now let's look at the pros and cons of autonomous shipping. Yes, let's first look at the pros. Short port stay, right? Faster turnaround, both are linked. No crew cost, hence lower operating cost, fine. Because of this, lower freight rates, right? No accidents due to human error or failure because there is no crew on board. No cases of criminalization of seafarers. No dependence on crew supplying countries like India, Bangladesh, blah, blah. And ship owner is in full control of his ships. Let's look at the cons. Vulnerability to cyber attack. You saw the diagram. Anybody, just as a person sitting at the remote center can control the ship, anybody who can hack in also can control the ship. Increase piracy threat. Obviously, if you think you are advanced, the pirates are more advanced than you. They can hijack your ship, unload all the cargo, and then leave it alone. Accident due to machine failure. There is an example of this which happened a month ago. I'll talk about it a little bit later. Accident caused due to human operator. Now, when a human operator sitting at a remote place and controlling the ship, how different is it from a human operator on a ship? Both are exposed to the same amount of danger, same amount of accidents, but this is not brought out. Increased scope for maritime frauds. Yes. No guarantee of cleaner and safer ships because the bilges can be pumped by mistake by the machine. Okay. Threat to employment opportunity to mariners. Search and rescue operations will become difficult because when you have the search and rescue operations going on, there is a on-site coordinator who is from the Navy or from the Coast Guard. Now, how will an autonomous ship with nobody on board go to the help of another ship in distress? And an autonomous ship doesn't have any accommodation. It will not have any uh, spare lifeboats or lifeguards. So it will be totally useless. So search and rescue operation with autonomous ships will be a difficult proposition. Danger to all manned and unmanned manned ships and smaller crafts in the vicinity. Safety and security issue for ships operating in conflict zones. This one is something which is happening, and no legal framework in place at yet. So these are the cons. Now let's take a look at what are the existing conventions. SOLAS, COLREG, Rules of the Road, MARPOL, GMDSS, STCW, Maritime Level Convention. All these become irrelevant because they are all applied to manned ocean-going vessels. Hence, these conventions need to be reviewed and regulatory requirements redefined by the IMO to make them relevant to autonomous shipping. Let's look at the journey to autonomous ship. We started with automation in 65. Then progressively the automation increased on board. In 1970s and 80s, there were 70 to 80 crew members on board, total strength. Soon that started reducing. Some large ships, it got reduced to 28 or 20 and even to 10 in the 90s. And soon you'll see large ships without anyone on board. Autonomous ships designed to be controlled from remote control centers, and self-controlled, fully autonomous ships will look distinctly different from the today's ship because they will have no accommodation space due to total absence of crew. The remote control center will play an important part on autonomous ships, whether it is having crew on board or not. Even when ships are able to operate completely on their own, they will have to have somebody on shore who will take charge if and when some condition demands. Different types of ships or ships at different stages of their voyages, in all likelihood, require different levels of oversight and control from the remote control center. A cargo ship, for instance, far out at sea, will normally need very little human supervision. With a single shore-based controller or commander, many ships can be controlled at the same time. But when a vessel is operating in a congested shipping lane, close to shore, or while entering or leaving a port, it will require much more care and full attention of an individual controller or commander sitting at a control station. This is how a remote control station will look. This is another view with a large shipping company like Shipping Corporation of India. They will have so many people sitting in the control centers operating and controlling various ships. What are the benefits of autonomous shipping? These benefits are envisaged by the concept developers. They say it will be safer, it will be more efficient, it will be cheaper to run, have large cargo carrying capacity, offer lower wind resistance due to no accommodation, so fuel consumption will be low, help owners and operators to respond to growing shortage of. This appears to be one of the major reasons why all these concept developers are very keen on implementing autonomous ships. What are the challenges before autonomous shipping? The challenges are regulatory changes are required to allow autonomous ships to operate safely. Safety is one important factor. Insurance and legal liability related to issues in the event of accident. Nobody knows what is this, how the insurance companies and legal and people will deal with a situation of an accident happening with an autonomous ship. Crime, Cyber crimes will be there. Piracy attacks will also be there. So therefore, there is a need for a regulatory framework, and there is an urgent need. And these organizations are busy working on it. They are the Advanced Autonomous Waterborne Applications, Finland, Safety Regulations for European and Maritime Ships, Maritime Autonomous Ships Regulatory Working Group, UK, International Maritime Organization. And there are also organizations in Korea and Japan also working on this to make a regulatory framework. Now, this is something futuristic, the shape of things to come. AR stands for augmented reality. How augmented reality, which is already being used ashore, will soon find its way on board ships for troubleshooting purposes. Take a look at this.
What if there was a way for employees to work together from anywhere when everything is on the line? Employees are the heart of every business. It's their resourcefulness, ingenuity, and drive that get the job done. But even the best employees need help from people who aren't there with them. Now employees on site can work side by side with experts in remote locations. In an instant, they can share what they see, lend a helping hand, walk through the process step by step, helping solve problems in real time. This is a new vision for work. Now employees can work smarter and bring in the people they need with just a tap. They can troubleshoot, repair, and perform with confidence and speed. They can move freely, pull critical information into view, and stay focused on the task. Their hands free to do the work. This is collaborative problem solving at full speed. Your people, united across time and distance, more connected, more informed, and more efficient. Now employees can work together from anywhere. They can go there without being there. This isn't the future. This is here and now.
This is here and now, and it will soon make its entry on board ships, not only for remote troubleshooting, but also surveys. A surveyor sitting at the headquarters can survey a machinery, whether deck machinery or engine machinery, by using this augmented reality, which is real and surreal superimposed. This is another example of shape of things to come. If there is nobody on board there are a few people only, there is no galley crew, then you will have a robotic galley. Well, that's how it's going to be in the future on board passenger ships or cargo ships if there is anybody on board. Now, there has to be a catering service on cruise ships. This is how the catering service will be with minimal crew, catering crew on board. The food is automatically prepared by robotic cooks in the galley, and it is sent automatically to various tables once the waitress there books the order and clicks a button. The era of autonomous ships has already dawned. The first autonomous ships was a car ferry named Falco. The maiden voyage was on 3/12/2018 from Parinen in Novo in Finland. The return voyage was under remote control from a control center located 30 kilometers away from Turku. This is the remote control center, and this is the ship. It was not tailor-made, but it is an existing car ferry which was converted into an autonomous ship. This is the second ship on 6/5/2019 from Mersey Island, UK, to Belgium. This was the second ship which made its voyage. It was an autonomous cargo ship. Now, NYK Line, they have a ship called Iris Leader, which is an autonomous car carrier. It made its maiden voyage on 14/9 and return voyage on 19/9. We'll try to have a look at how the ship.
Sometimes while writing my newsletters, I tend to type so fast that there are spelling errors or some of my sentences.
This is all silent mode. You'll have to read whatever instructions which come there. This voyage was done from Japan to China and back. And this voyage was done in the night. You can see how the ship avoided collision with other ships by steering to the starboard side. You can see it. The system is called, navigating system is called Sherpa system, developed by the Japanese. The green line is the recommended course. The white line is the planned course. So the ship changes its course as it sees other ships coming on its way. And this is the computation which you saw, the reward or the positive reward or negative reward to take the correct maneuver, to do the correct maneuver. Now it is switching over to the mass mode, autonomous mode. It is taking the recommended course to avoid any possible collision. You can see those red lights are the ships on its port side. It changed its course by 4 degrees. It is avoiding the target ship, which is green there. On the recommended course, it comes back to the planned course after avoiding the target vessel. The trial was completed successfully. Oh God. There is some problem here.
Please click on join from browser.
Joined?
From browser. Join from browser, the bottom one.
Which one? I don't get anything here.
There is something written join from browser at the last line. I think that should work.
No, it's not working.
No, not there. Join from browser.
Where is it? I don't find it here. Okay.
Yes, sir, we are able to hear you. So you're
Can
trying
you-
to
can
share the
you-
screen?
Can you, I'm sharing the screen. Can you see it now? Can
Yeah,
you see it?
we can
Okay.
see the.
So sorry for, in any automation, Mr. Murphy works overtime. That's why all this happens. Now, this is the ship which is called Mayflower 400. It's a fully autonomous scientific vessel. It was to start operation from June of this year from Massachusetts in UK to Massachusetts in USA to commemorate the 400th year of first sailing across the Atlantic. It's a fully autonomous ship, and let's take a look.
Can someone working alone solve all the world's biggest challenges.
There are some existing vessels that are sort of remote controlled, but this isn't even that. The intention is it's fully autonomous. It's been trained with a whole load of different images of things it might encounter at sea, from seagulls to boats to icebergs, and that will inform the decision made by the AI captain on where to steer next. And that will also factor in things like the weather to say if there are any storms it should avoid, and a rules-based system determines where the course that the captain's proposing is actually legal according to the highway code of the ocean.
Yes, sir. Actually, we are not able to see the video right now. We are just seeing the PPT at this point.
You're not able to see the video?
Yeah, no, not it. So still the presentation is visible to us.
That most of the space on board a normal boat is given over to accommodating the people. So someone to sleep, a galley for them to eat, storing all their food, all that stuff. We don't need any of that. So the entire content of the boat can be given over to scientific experiments.
Maybe we can share this link with the attendees, and if in case if we are seeing any issues.
Let me see if I can get you back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Let me see if I can start it again. There is something wrong with my connection here. Well, I'm not able to go.
So you can share it with again using Zoom, where there'll be a share screen button.
Can you see it now?
Not yet, sir.
Can you see it now?
Yeah. So we are able to see the presentation right now. Maybe
Okay.
this video what you are showing is opening in another video, which I think Zoom is not able to capture at this point.
We'll try once more, otherwise we'll skip it.
Sure, sir.
Can someone working alone solve all the world's biggest challenges?
Yeah, we are just able to hear the sound, but not the video yet.
Okay, then we'll skip it. It is a ship which I keep going back forth. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
I think again I'm having problem here. Can you see it?
Not yeah. We can see the presentation now, sir.
Okay, we'll skip this video clip. We go to next. Now, a survey was done to find out how many ship owners are really interested in autonomous ships and whether it is being driven by the technology providers. And this is what it shows. 84%, The question is, do you think that the presence of crew on board vessels will always be essential for shipboard operations? 84% said yes. 10% said no. And 6% said only in crowded areas. And then here you see remote and autonomous operations of ships driven by technology. A whopping 46% is driven by technology and another 20%. So the technology providers seem to be pushing this concept of autonomous ships. Now, this is the kind of timeline for autonomous ships. We already skipped. We are somewhere here. Okay. So by 2030, autonomous ships are bound to become the order of the day. So we conclude, advancement of technology cannot be halted. Autonomous ships with no crew on board is a distinct possibility in the near future. But to reach this destination, a few more important milestones need to be crossed in order to make autonomous shipping absolutely safe, secure, reliable, and legal. There is also a need to ensure that there is no adverse socio-economic impact. Job losses is the socio-economic impact due to autonomous shipping. Now, before we sign off, I would request you to ponder over these points. If man himself is imperfect, then can man-made devices be perfect? Automation could be a good servant, but could prove to be a bad master, pun intended. Disruptive technology is fine, but destructive technology is not. So before we sign off, we go back to John the poet, John Masefield the poet. If he were to reincarnate now in this day and age of autonomous ships, how will he rephrase the first stanza of his poem, Sea Fever? What he said then was, I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely seas and sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and star to steer her by. Now, if he's this day and age, he will say, must I go to the seas again, to the crowded seas and sky? Crowded seas because there's a lot of ships, crowded sky because there are a lot of satellites. So must I go to the seas again, to the crowded seas and sky, now that I have autonomous ships and satellites to steer by? Thank you very much for your patience, and sorry for that interruption because Mr. Murphy has always a role to play in every presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chari, for an excellent presentation. Okay, I can also see number of questions already coming up, but before we start the question and answer session, it is my privilege once again to welcome the chief guest, Mr. M.V. Ramamurthy. So I request Mr. Ramamurthy, please give your views on this particular subject. Mr. Ramamurthy, sir.
Thank you so much, Krishna. I hope you can hear me.
We can all hear you, sir. Thank you.
It's a very interesting presentation. And Dr. Chari has been so dynamic, fluent, and I think he himself is a smart sensor. So he could do everything very nicely. Now we are talking about autonomous ships. And he also explained there are already some ships in service or have been taken on trial. One of the important things the host would like to unmute. Who is that? I don't know. Okay, it's not on me. Is it the particular one for me? Unmute.
No, sir, you please carry on, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. So now he mentioned many factors for the future success of the autonomous ships. As long as human beings are on board the ships, the human intelligence was there, so that the ship can go safely and securely. But today, autonomous ships, of course, will have artificial intelligence, so that they can perform the role of the human beings. But how far the artificial intelligence has to be supported also for human beings, we have yet to see, and it will take its own time. Coming to one of the points, he mentioned about all organizations who are connected with this, what they're really doing to ensure. He mentioned about not autonomous ships, but autonomous shipping. That's very true. More than the autonomous ships, there are very connected parties as supporting the autonomous ships as autonomous shipping. IMO is one of the most important organizations who are going to play a part in the success of these autonomous ships. So what is it really IMO doing now? Maybe I can say something about the present status of what is IMO doing. Actually, the important treaties of IMO will be the legal as well as the safety committee treaties, which have already started. These autonomous ships are actually known as marine autonomous surface ships or MAS. IMO has already come out with the initiation of the MAS code. So when the MAS code comes, we will have some of the important problems sorted out regarding the treaties. So IMO aims to integrate new and advanced technologies in this regulatory framework to balance the benefits derived from the new and the advancing technologies against the safety and security concerns, which are going to have an environment on the environment. It will have an impact, and also have an impact on the facilitation of the international trade. It will also have an impact on the potential cost to the industry, irrespective of the fact that there will be a lot of cost savings. It will also impact the personnel, which Dr. Chari already informed. So IMO wants to ensure that the regulatory framework for marine autonomous surface ships or the MAS keeps pace with technological developments that are rapidly evolving and really going fast. IMO has recently completed a regulatory scoping exercise on this MAS, and it has gone through all the IMO instruments which needs to be impacted because the autonomous ships coming into picture. Particularly, the IMO has graded these autonomous ships into 4 of them. And the most important thing is the degree 3, which is a remotely controlled ship, and degree 4, which is fully autonomous ships. So the key issues is to address the functional and operational requirements of the remote control station center. It is outside the ship. So it becomes part of the shipping and the possible designation of a remote operator or seafarer. There will be a lot of common potential gaps has to be addressed in autonomous shipping. And these exercises have to be done by IMO. And each of the conventions listed in SOLAS or belonging to the MSC, Maritime Safety Committee, the legal committees, and the facilitation committee has to be gone through. And they have to be seen and graded as whether they apply to mass so that it will prevent the operations, or apply to mass but will not prevent the mass operations, and these ships require no further actions, or apply to mass, do not prevent mass operations, but need amendments, and these have to be clarified. And also there may be ships where no application is required at all for the operations to continue. Degree 1 is ships with automated process. Degree 2 is remotely controlled ships. Degree 3 is I explained. Degree 4 also I explained. So what is the Maritime Safety Committee going to get into is the treaties on SOLAS, COLRAC, load lines, SCCW, SCCWF, SAR, and Tonnage Convention, CSC, as well as Conventions of Space, STP, and all of them. The legal committee has to look into the role and responsibility of the master, the role and responsibility of remote operator, questions of liability, insurance, consistent definitions, terminology in mass, and how the carriage of the certificates is to be revised. The Facilitation Committee will also complete its formalities maybe by 2022. So the mass code will also come into being maybe in the future immediately. Meanwhile, the IMO has given interim guidelines by way of the MSC circular, and these all will apply. These are the things as far as IMO has taken and the present status. I thought I will just give a small picture on that, though many of you must be knowing all this. But Dr. Charya has already explained the pros and cons. Now I saw an elaborate robot operated kitchen. When nobody is there, why do you need a kitchen? I think maybe they will allow passenger ships also as autonomous ships. I really don't know how it is going to do that. And some of the annexes in probably Marpol will go out. Then you may not need a sewage plant at all. And you may not need the Annex 4. So some thoughts into my mind. I really congratulate Dr. Chari for a wonderful presentation. Very nicely, the presentation actually had contents which provokes the thoughts of people rather than unnecessary detailed something about engineering and other things. And Dr. Nan Chari is known for his presentations, and I hope this presentation at this INA will be very fruitful to others. My best wishes to President of INA, my good friend, Mr. Jyotishman Dasgupta, and Mr. Partho, who was, inaugurating the event, Mr. Kamal Palit, who is also a colleague, and various other colleagues and friends whom I am connected with naval architects institutions for many years. Thank you so much. And I am looking for further success of this presentation with useful questions and for good answers from the panelists, Dr. Chari, as well as Professor Shah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramamurthy, sir, for covering the regulatory and legal framework for autonomous ships. I'm audible, I hope.
Very audible.
So once again, thank you, sir, for your comments, which covered the regulatory and legal framework, which have to be in place if autonomous ships are to be or are to start operation in a big way. It's my duty that I should coordinate the question answer session. So I would like to address, there are some questions. People who have put their questions on the chat box, could you please copy it back on question answer? It will be easier for me. So I take the questions one by one in the same order. There are two questions from Mr. Taposh Kumar Biswas. I think he's stationed in Singapore. And I will try to combine both these questions as far as possible. The question basically relates to remote navigation for emergency cases. And he asks, how do you suggest to address the lag of data camera feed, that is in LIDAR and radar feed, manual processing and remote navigation? I understand what he's trying to put, that there is a time lag in this. And he tops up this question with another one, which says, what if the ship's satellite communications fail? How do you address these situations? These are situations which will be critical, and there must be a framework to address them. So could I request Dr. Chari to briefly answer them?
Yeah, I have also the same questions because I'm not able to find an answer. There will be a lag of 240 seconds for the uplink, another 240 seconds for downlink. Sorry, milliseconds for downlink. There will be a delay of 0.5 seconds. But how will that be addressed? That is my questions as well.
So that technology must come up.
Yes, and when there is a sunspot activity, okay, when the sun flares take place, the entire satellite system fails. In a situation like that, if there is an emergency situation on board a vessel and there is a fire on board, okay, fully autonomous ships or even remote control autonomous ships. Now, the remote controller has to advise the ship what to do, what type of firefighting equipment or whether water should be used or CO2 water. If he is in that process of advising the ship and a solar flare takes place, everything goes fat.
Yeah.
So that is why in the points to ponder, if man himself is imperfect, can man-made devices be perfect? Is a point to ponder.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think that Mr. Biswas should be looking for the answers for this question. Okay, and that's what these are the problems, as you rightly said, the pros and cons. These are the cons of the system, and one has to look into it. Now, a similar related question to this is from Dr. Bharadwaj Iyengar from NSTL DRDO lab. Dr. Bharadwaj, I know personally, has been very much involved in autonomous underwater vehicles. So his question is, with LIDAR, radar, etc., are all the states and control parameters observable? And if there is a remote navigation through satellite, then again the communication lag and the data bandwidth protocols may be a limiting factor, which is exactly what Mr. Biswas also raised. So your comments on this again. I think
I've answered the question.
Yeah, I guess so, but I think
bandwidth limitation will always be there.
Yes.
Okay, and how that is going to behave in exceptional situation is what you have to look at. A shipping is a 24-hour, 365 days business. So if a ship is on a transatlantic voyage and suddenly the satellite fails, and it is needed. Supposing a ship has developed a leak, who is there to fix the cement box, and who is going to be advising? And if they are going to advise them through the satellite, if the satellite at that time, you just saw towards the end of my this thing how Murphy's law played. If something is going to go wrong, it will. With the Mayflower 400, when it set on its voyage, it had to come back because one of the mechanical coupling failed. So all these things are bound to happen. So the authorities who are trying to sell this concept or advise this concept should take into all these small little things. Otherwise,
Yeah,
it
I
may
understand there's a lot to be done. There's a
there
lot
is
to be done.
lot of homework to be done. The technology advancement cannot be stopped, but at the same time, you see, it is not like a autonomous car or autonomous bike. It is carrying 250,000 tons of oil. 80% of our what we need for our daily life is carried by ships. And if we are going to have two ships on a collision course and a remote guy trying to control it through the satellite, and if the satellite fails, what happens? So these are the things which IMO has to give. Why IMO? All of us will have to give thought. How are we going to face this situation? That is why NYK line, they said we will have an autonomous ship, which you saw there, but we will have people on board. Artificial intelligence cannot replace natural intelligence.
So these are called what we call manned autonomous vehicles.
Yes.
That's right. Thank you, sir. I think I will come back to Mr. Prashant Saroj and Kaustubh Mittal, but I first of all want to go to Professor Shenoy. He has asked two very pertinent questions, and these are very difficult to answer even for me. What is the status of research and industry interest in autonomous shipping in India?
In India, you want a frank answer?
Obviously, Professor Shenoy wants a frank answer. None.
Yes, I'm known to be absolutely blunt. There is zero.
Oh yeah, that's right.
When you try to tell a student, take a project in artificial intelligence, he said, oh, there is mathematics in it, I don't want. So what sort of artificial intelligence are you looking at without mathematics? That is why I put that caution.
No, I think what we also must look at, is there an industry interest?
I don't think there is anybody working on this, at least as far as my knowledge goes. And we have a long way to go.
So
the second question, let me place before you answer. That is again from Professor Shenoy. What is being done to include the human element in the regulatory framework for autonomous ships being considered by IRS and DG Shipping?
Well, I'm not aware of what IRS is doing, frankly. They won't tell us, will they?
Anything regarding DG Shipping? Because he has raised a very important thing, because the human element is very, very essential in the regulatory framework.
Yes.
Human element leads to errors, but human elements also prevent errors. I think that's what Professor Shenoy is.
You see, I got two different statistics from two different sources, which refers to the same original source. One says that 58% of the errors are due to human, and another says 85%. He just reversed it from 58 to 85, and it is due to human. Okay, a person sitting in a remote place, is he not a human? He is also a human being. So 85% of the errors will still occur for remote control ship. Who has addressed this issue? So all these issues require answers, and nothing should be done in a haste. We don't stop technology, but at the same time, so long as AI cannot find an algorithm for gut feeling, for sixth sense, for hunches of human beings, I think we will not have a perfect solution.
Thank you, sir. The next question I'm putting forward, but I think it has been answered, but you just that for these autonomous operations, here Mr. Prashant Kumar Saroj is asking, what are the advantages and disadvantages for this autonomous operation? I thought you had nicely answered them regarding pros and cons.
Pros and cons gives everything.
That's right. So I think, Mr. Prashant, please look into that. We move on to the next question. This is, you had given number of examples, sir. And Mr. Kaustav Mittal is asking, are there applications of autonomous ships in preventing oil spills?
Not that I know of. Because oil spills, the MARPOL regulations, as it is, you cannot pump out anything in any area. Now, we have to develop an artificial intelligence for taking care of this. Has it been developed? No, it's still not. Nobody's sure. That is the reason why I said safety and pollution control are things which are still not, which is in the cons list, not in the pros list, as you can recall. I said pollution control and safety are in the cons list, not in the pros list. So I don't have a definite answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The next two questions are regarding batteries. I think they must be for electric vehicles. Yeah. There is one from an anonymous attendee and the other is from Mr. Rahul Manabalam. These are regarding battery size, range for short voyages and span of batteries. These are all, I guess, related to electric vehicles, electric ships. I think one of the pioneers in this area is the DNV Revolt, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Yeah. And so anything you have to comment on this?
Yeah. The Lara Berkeland, which you saw, is fully battery operated ship. The battery also serves the function of the ballast. Okay, and they say they use lithium ion batteries. So if you go to the Lara Berkeland site, they have given the outline specification. What is the capacity of the battery? How, at what intervals it has to be charged. I don't have the figures right away, but it is, they have defined it. They have defined it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Again, Abdul Rahim from NK class, which is very similar to what Professor Shenoy has asked. Dr. Rahim's question is, what are the initiatives ongoing in India towards autonomous ships? I think that has been answered.
Oh, already answered it.
That's right.
I wish we could.
Dr. Rahim, a little bit I can say that there are some of my, I know some of my students have opened up some company and they are working on this. I think one of the participants, Mr. Maitri Maka, is working on this autonomous vehicle for coastal and nearshore operations. I think he's one of the attendees. He can respond to your. I would like him to get. You can get in touch with Mr.
I would love to get in touch with him because I'm looking forward to somebody.
So he has been. He was a very good student of ours. And instead of taking up a job, he opened up his own company and he has been working on autonomous vehicles in Goa, if I'm not mistaken.
I would love to
have one of the
participants
to this, and I hope we can connect him to you.
That will be great. That will be great.
Thank you, Professor Shah. But is there any initiative from the government side, from the ministry side, any policy decisions or anything like that?
I am not aware.
That I am aware of, sir. No, sir.
Not anything.
There are certain efforts being made by DRDO or the defense labs, and our Dr. Bharadwaj Iyengar is here. He should be able to give a clear picture. But these are, I think, not on public domain.
Okay.
A lot of work is going on in the defense domain. I am aware of it. Okay, and Dr. Bharadwaj, who has raised the question, he must be aware. But these are a lot of autonomous vehicle for defense operations work is going on, both surface and subsurface.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rahim. It's a pleasure to talk to you. There is two last questions. This is from Mr. Anurag. What things should I keep in mind while designing an autonomous ship? What are the key components, sensors, what algorithms that are followed? Mr. Anurag, I think Dr. Chari gave a very nice answer regarding all the sensors and all other systems, even giving the logic behind them, both smart sensors and actuators. Dr. Chari, would you like to comment on this?
Well, I've given all those things.
I think
if he's working on fusion technology, sensor fusion technology, then he could have a closer look at the Kalman filter and also the particle filter, and which will be more effective. There are situations where Kalman filter can be very effective in centrifusion technology, and there are situations where particle filter could be responsible.
Particle, that's right. That's
That
what
is
you
an
mentioned.
area. That is an area which is
Yeah.
worth looking at closely. And but both these filters have been used in aircrafts which move at a tremendous pace. As far as ship is concerned, it moves at 15 knots. So there won't be any. It has got all the time in the world to compute the exact position, velocity, and orientation with lidar, radar, and cameras. So
I also believe that they are being used in underwater vehicles.
yes, they are
remotely
being used.
operated.
They are being used. Yeah.
Finally, one last question from Mr. Ravindra Chadda. Sir, I put you at the end because I am not used to reading in the WhatsApp language. You have, it took me some time to understand the questions. It is like this: have the insurance companies outlined their T&C or underwriting yet? It was in a telegraphic language, so I was finding it difficult to understand. Have the insurance company outlined their terms and conditions or underwriting yet?
Not that I know of. All the while, the insurance companies have been saying that 85% of the accidents takes place because of human error. That is all that I know of. They're not saying whether they're going to underwrite, and I do not know whether these ships on trials, autonomous ships on trials, whether they were underwritten for a particular voyage. Nothing is known. Nobody is coming out with information. So I'm afraid I have very little points to.
Knowing NYK, I think I can safely say that they probably underwrote themselves, because that's a very large organization that does that quite often. I'm aware of that. But as far as for commercial shipping, I think, sir, my question more was related to the timeline that you have presented, wherein you say that in the next 15 years, you should be seeing the advent of autonomous ships. With so much work yet to be done, do you think that that would be a realistic approach, sir? Realistic target?
I first and foremost, I didn't project those timelines. I'm just showing you what is in the public domain. That is, by 2029, that is end of this decade, you're supposed to have autonomous ships sailing of all sizes. But then, who is saying that? I don't know.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. I think we would like to end in time. So I once again thank all the people who have put forward their questions, and I hope there is a last question from Mr. Narayan Swami. Is there a possibility to operate ships partly in autonomous mode and partly in manned mode?
Well, if you have to have a partly in man mode, you should have crew on board. So when you're having crew on board, yes, it is possible to do both the ways. The only problem is if this autonomous mode is remote controlled, and if the remote control commander gives an order which is conflicting with the order given by the person on board, then there is a problem. There shouldn't be a conflict. So all these things have to be resolved. It can happen, both modes it can work. That is what NYK has said, that we are going to have crew on board, although it will be a fully autonomous ship with full capabilities of autonomous ship, but there will be crew on board. But in a conflict situation, when the remote control says, take this action, and the local guy says, no, I'll have to take this action, I suppose the local guy knows things better, so his action will prevail. That is my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think we have answered all the questions that were presented to us on the question answer box. So it's now my job and privilege to sum up the session. First of all, thank you, Dr. Chari, for an excellent presentation. You have covered this autonomous ship in a very nice manner, starting from smart sensors and actuators, IoT, the nitty-gritty of technology, to machine learning, and where you emphasized on the reinforced learning. You also looked into the pros and cons, the IMO conventions and challenges of are we trying to justify unmanned operation? Yeah, this is the broader question that is to be asked. Now, I had looked at it from a slightly more global manner, that the shipping industry is a part of this global change. supply network. And it's a very crucial supply network. As you have seen, any disruption on this global chain creates a lot of problems worldwide, as we have seen. And if we look at the supply chain by road, rail, or by sea, we find that in terms of planning, the least reliable is the transport in shipping. And therefore, I feel that if it improves the global supply chain mechanism by making it more reliable, by making it more efficient, there is no two-way out. Autonomy will come into picture. The legal frame will be driven by the global chain supply network to get the autonomy in picture, provided it can bring in reliability, provided it can improve the supply chain mechanism, which ultimately leads down to costs and so on and so forth. This is, I would like to put in my perspective out here. And as rightly pointed out by Dr. Chari, that there are key tasks to be overcome before we can think of autonomous ships coming in a big way. And some of them have been discussed, and these are collision avoidance, voyage execution, berthing of ships, and some of them very nicely shown in videos. Then you have mooring and anchoring, which are also there. Then you also will have cargo supervision and documentation. And finally, the machinery. Okay, will be there, because how do you do the maintenance and repair if need be? And at the end of the day, emergency response also has to be looked into in an autonomous ship. How do you look into this? So with these brief words, I would like to just pose a question. What is an autonomous ship and what is a smart ship? At what stage a smart ship becomes an autonomous ship? Okay. Because in a smart ship, as you have seen in most of the smartphones and smart technology, you are using all this technology of big data, data analytics, machine learning, everything has come into picture. So do we go in for an autonomous ship, or are the ships going to become smarter and smarter till it becomes autonomous? These are some of the points which have been nicely put forward by Dr. Chari and also by Mr. Ramamurthy. So with these few words, I would once again like to thank the speaker, Dr. Chari, the chief guest, Mr. Ramamurthy, INA for its effort in holding these sessions, Mr. Jyotishman Dasgupta, Mr. KK Palit, and Mr. Partha Barman Rai. And finally, a session like this will not be possible, but for the attendees who have attended and who have taken active part in the question and answer session. So once again, thank you very much. I think we are more or less on time, except for a couple of minutes. So I would like to hand it back to, I think, Mr. Palit, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you once again. And
yeah, thanks, Professor O.P. Shah. Yeah, Mr. Palit, if you can maybe say a few words. Yeah, thank you.
I thank, can you hear me?
yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
I thank Dr. Chari for the excellent presentation, because I am in constant touch with him and I talk almost every alternate day on different subjects, and he is my doctor and I am his patient. That is how our relation is. And when I talk to him, he says that, look here, Mr. Patient, everybody is asking me to check them why INA is not doing. I said, INA will do, and I will talk to Mr. Jyotishman. And that's how it has been arranged. And then I went to both Mr. Ramamurthy to be the chief guest and Professor Shah to take the chair, and they kindly agreed. I must thank both of them, and I must thank all the attendees to participate in this seminar. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dada. Thank you very much, Dada.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Pali.
Can we leave, sir?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we leave? Yeah, is it over?
Yes, sir. Sir, we can yeah, close the
can-
I
session.
think
Thanks
all
a
of us
lot,
are
everyone.
pleased. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.